Welcome back to Stuttering Sports. Today is September 16th, 2021, and the topic for today is my Week 2 Fantasy Jubilee. What that means is I'm going to list off everything you need to know heading into Week 2 of your fantasy season. That includes waiver wire pickups. It's a little late, but it's still valuable. Trade advice, basically buy, hold, and sell. And some Week 2 streamers and a boom or bust lineup going into Week 2. So, without further ado, let's get right into it, starting off with the waiver wire additions. I'm going to list off one at each position, by the way. Starting off with QB, I have quarterback for the Denver Broncos, Teddy Bridgewater. He put up 20.4 points last week. And, well, he plays Jacksonville in Week 2 and then the Jets in Week 3. Both have very favorable matchups. And then from weeks, I believe it's 4 to 9, it's going to be rough for him. But for these next 2 weeks, I'm expecting pretty good things from the man, Teddy Bridgewater. Moving on to running back, I do have running back for the Baltimore Ravens, Latavius Murray. 10 carries for 28 yards is very bad. It is bad, but he also had a touchdown totaling up to 8.8 points, which is not a big day whatsoever, but I don't view it as a big deal. I view it was more so the Raiders defense playing really well than Latavius Murray playing really bad. So I don't expect big things from Latavius Murray, but I think he can be a really consistent, really low-end running back 3, high-end running back 4, towards kind of middle of the season when he gets into the groove of things, because he was just picked up not long ago whatsoever. So I don't expect big things, but I expect decent things. Moving on to wide receiver. Now, this guy I really like. New England Patriots receiver Nelson Aguilera put up 18 points last week in Mac Jones' first start versus the Dolphins secondary. There's a lot of value there that is extremely underrated. He's only picked up in 36.6% of ESPN leagues, and that is criminally low. He is going to be a very consistent guy, and he plays the fucking Jets this week, so Nelson Aguilera is a guy to pick up. Moving on to tight end, I do have Bears tight end Comet. This is a guy who at the end of last season, well, actually his rookie season, saw a lot more targets than what he was getting pretty early on. He was a second round pick too, meaning he was a highly picked tight end. So I think Comet is going to continue to see more and more target shares. He saw 7 targets last week, totaling up to 9 points versus a really good Rams defense. So if you need a backup tight end, I would pick up Comet because he's looking relatively good. He is still very young, and if they implement Justin Fields, he is a rookie QB. He kind of needs that security blanket. Look towards Comet to kind of do what Mike Gesicki or Gesicki, I don't know how to pronounce it, did last season. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, I actually drafted this defense. I'm very high on this defense. That is the Carolina Panthers defense, and they exceeded expectations in week 1, putting up 11 points in Zach Wilson's first start versus the Jets. I don't expect this to really continue. They are playing the Saints in week 2, which is really interesting because the Saints just put up 38, but how can you expect them to continue to do that? So I think the Panthers are a really good sleeper defense. They're the best sleeper defense right now. I think they're only rostered in 15% of leagues. I want to say that might be wrong, but you get the point. It's a really low percentage of leagues. Panthers defense is a defense to definitely pick up and kind of stash because they're very young and they have very high upside against favorable matchups like we saw in week 1. So, quick little recap for the waiver wire pickups. We got Teddy Bridgewater, Latavius Murray, Nelson Aguilera, Comet, and the Panthers defense. So, without further ado, let's move on to some trade advice. Alright, how the trade advice segment's going to work is I'm going to list off one player for buy, hold, and sell. So my player for buy, I don't want to say someone like Derrick Henry or Aaron Jones because no shit you should buy them, but let's face it, you're probably not going to be able to get them, but if you are able to get one of those guys, get them. I just don't want to be one of those generic accounts that say, well, you know, Derrick Henry did bad last week. You should buy Derrick Henry. Yeah, no fucking shit. So, yeah, my buy for this week is wide receiver for the Bears, Allen Robinson. I don't expect him to be very available, but you should definitely kick the tire on him, especially if you don't have a very consistent wide receiver. I don't view Robinson as a big boomer bust guy, kind of like how Justin Jefferson is. I view Robinson as a very consistent 15 to 20 points per week. I don't expect him to get 30 and I don't expect him to bust and get below 10. He did last week because, you know, the whole Jalen Ramsey guy, but I do not expect that to continue, as Robinson is one of the most underrated receivers in the league. And Andy Dalton's not a bad QB. He's not anything special. But if fucking Justin Fields goes in, expect a lot of targets to Mr. Allen Robinson. My hold guy for the week is definitely Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver for the 49ers. He is hurt right now. And we just saw what Deebo Samuel did. Granted, it was against the Lions. Let's not put a bunch of stock into that. But we just saw what that man did. And Brandon Ayuk is, in my opinion, better than Deebo Samuel. Now, that's not my really term to say. That's definitely Kyle Shanahan, Jimmy Garoppolo's, and Trey Lance's term to say. But I will say, Brandon Ayuk, he put up a lot of really good numbers last season with mostly a backup QB. So I expect really good things from him with Jimmy G in, and with Deebo Samuel just putting up 36, I cannot imagine what Brandon Ayuk is going to do. Moving on to the sell segment, take this with a grain of salt because I mean, it's only 1 week. This dude can continue to do really well. I just don't really expect him to, and that guy is running back for the Broncos, Melvin Gordon. On paper, I didn't watch the Broncos game because why would I put myself through that? But on paper, 11 carries for 100 yards plus a touchdown. Magnificent. 20 fantasy points. He had a fantastic fantasy day, but he got a lot of those from a 70-yard touchdown run, which there's nothing wrong with that. You got a 70-yard touchdown run. I think there's a lot of points in that, but you can't really ignore the fact that Javonte Williams still got more carries than him. I'm personally still going to hold him. I actually have Melvin Gordon. I'm personally going to hold him because I don't have another option at running back. But if you do have the array of running backs that some teams do have, I would definitely try to sell him at his peak value, which I view as right now. Melvin Gordon is definitely an interesting guy, and he's playing Jacksonville and then the Jets. So if you do want to hold him, I don't blame you, but you can get a lot of value from him right now. That is going to do it for the trade segment of things. Let's move on to the streamers. Why not? I already talked about him once, but at QB, my week 2 QB stream is Teddy Bridgewater playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm talking about the Broncos a good bit in this video. That's because they're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. Teddy Bridgewater is going to have a good day. He has the rushing ability and he has the weapons. Jerry Jeudy did unfortunately go down, but he still has Cortland Sutton and then KJ Hamler. So, yeah, I expect good things from Teddy Bridgewater as Tyrod Taylor literally just pieced up the Jacksonville Jaguars. Moving on to running back, I do have James Conner. And his debut with the freaking Cardinals, he didn't do really big things, but he still got 16 carries, which was more than Chase Edmonds. James Conner, he didn't do great things with those carries, but, you know, nonetheless, 16 carries holds value. And James Conner is also playing the Minnesota Vikings, who Joe Mixon just absolutely demolished. So, yeah, moving on to wide receiver. My wide receiver stream for the week. I think I should have two guys. Two guys to greatly consider are Tim Patrick for the Broncos, once again, Broncos, and Darnell Mooney for the Bears, once again, Bears. I know, but I think they both hold value because Tim Patrick had a really good week last week, putting up 12 points, and he's playing Jacksonville. I mean, I don't have to say it more times. I'm going to continue to say it because I already have one more time to say it. And, Darnell Mooney, he only put up 7 points last week, but he did get a good amount of the target share, and he is playing the Bengals this week. I think Robinson's going to have a big day this weekend, but I would not be surprised if Mooney sneaks in a solid 10, 11, 12. I'm not expecting big things from Mooney, but a 10, 11, 12 day can be expected. And with Tim Patrick, a big day can be expected. Moving on to the defense. This is the most obvious one in the book, and I feel sorry for doing it. But the Cleveland Browns against the Houston Texans. I mean, come on. You can't blame me. It's too easy. I get Tyrod Taylor pieced up the Jaguars defense. And hey, congrats to the Texans. They did not go 0-17 this year. That deserves a round of applause from everyone. And actually, they put up 37 points. That was really surprising. But they're playing the Browns defense now, okay? I get that they didn't hold Patrick Mahomes, but I mean, no one's going to even argue this point. The Browns defense is going to piece up Mark Ingram. Come on. It's an easy one. I don't think the Texans are going to get, dookied on, but I think Brandon Cooks is going to do decent. But come on. It's the Browns versus the Texans. The Browns defense is going to have a big day. Moving on to the boom or bust segment. I'm going to start off with the booms. And the booms go Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert did not have a big day versus Washington, but I actually did watch the game because I do really like the Chargers. Justin Herbert pieced up that defense. He looked magnificent, and he's playing the Cowboys passing defense, which is notoriously awful. My running back my running back boom for the week is Austin Echoler. Once again, playing Dallas. Echoler did not have a big day versus Washington. Actually, he saw 0 targets, which I do have Austin Echoler. I picked him with my first round pick. I did have the last pick. But Austin Echoler getting 0 targets was very surprising and a bit alarming, but playing Dallas this week, I mean, come on. That's so easy. But because that's like a really easy and cliche pick, especially since I just picked Justin Herbert, a second running back boom, in my opinion, is Miles Sanders for the Eagles. He looked great versus the Falcons. And you could say, oh, it's the Falcons. The Falcons suck. And well, you're right, they're fucking terrible. But they're playing the 49ers, which, immediately, red alarm, code red, do not play Miles Sanders. DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams just had fantastic receiving days, and Miles Sanders is a fantastic receiving back. He definitely teeters that line between boom and bust, because he could bust. He could bust. He is playing the 49ers. But considering DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, both of them saw big receiving days, and Miles Sanders is coming off of a fantastic week 1, I think Miles Sanders has incredible boom potential, but he can bust. But with the evidence provided, you cannot even argue the fact that he has no boom potential just because he's playing the Niners. No. This dude has boom potential. Moving on to wide receiver. I have DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf this week is playing the Tennessee Titans, who DeAndre Hopkins and the Cardinals team as a whole just shit on. I don't expect the Titans to get shit on once again, but DK Metcalf is DK Metcalf. If the Seahawks go up big early in a very similar fashion to how the Cardinals went up big early, which I think we can all agree can very easily happen. You are playing against Russell Wilson in a very high octane offense versus a relatively bad defense. It can happen. And well, DK Metcalf is DK Metcalf, and the Titans secondary sucks. Give me DK Metcalf having a huge day. Now for the boomer bust. I did not include a tight end, mostly because, are there really that many boom tight ends? I get Gronk boomed last week, but let's think about the tight end market. It's Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, and then George fucking Kittle, and then there's this second layer of like 5-6 more guys, and then it's everyone else. I didn't see someone that I was very confident in booming in. Just stick with your normal tight end. And if it's not Travis Kelce or Darren Waller or George Kittle, pray that they get like 15 plus points. So, moving on to the defense. I said I'd say them once again. I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but the Denver Broncos against Trevor Lawrence. I really like Trevor Lawrence, but he threw 3 picks last week against the Texans. The Broncos secondary is nuts. I'm shaking the camera so much. I'm sorry about that. But the Broncos secondary is absolutely nuts. And Trevor Lawrence, I expect to have a better day, probably not 3 picks, but playing against the Broncos secondary with Bradley Chubb and Von Miller and the pass rush, I don't think it's going to bode well. In my opinion, the Broncos are going to go up big really early in a similar fashion to what the Texans did. And, well, the Jaguars are going to be forced to throw. And when a rookie QB, regardless of who it is forced to throw versus a very great secondary, that's a recipe for failure. So, yeah, that's why I have the Jaguars there. Moving on to the bust lineup. Spaghetti. Starting off the bust lineup, and a little disclaimer. These are most likely going to be wrong because it is so hard to predict bust. If you would have told me last weekend that Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, and Aaron Rodgers all would have busted, I would have looked at you and said, you're wrong and you're dumb. So this is merely just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. That really is the same way with the boom lineup, but it does translate more with the bust lineup. So let's start off with it. Quarterback, I have Derek Carr. He's playing Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh just did a really good job versus Josh Allen. I expect him to do a really good job versus Derek Carr. Derek Carr played great. He put up 24 points versus the Baltimore defense last weekend, but I don't expect him to continue that against the Steelers defense that just shut down Josh Allen. Running back, I have Ezekiel Elliott. I don't like the Zeke hate train. I think there's some funny memes that come from it, but I'm not a big fan of the Zeke hate train. But I don't see a scenario where he gets the ball that much, the same way how it happened versus Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay went up. Dallas knew, oh shit, we have to throw this ball to stay in the game. And also we're playing one of the best rush defenses in the league. Yeah, they had to throw it and they barely gave Zeke the ball. I don't think that's a recipe for winning, but it's what happened. I could see a very similar thing happening this weekend versus a good rush defense. I think Los Angeles has a good rush defense. And, well, if the Chargers go up big early, they're going to have to start throwing it. So, yeah, Zeke, unfortunately, is resting in the bust area. At the wide receiver mark, I have Corey Davis. Corey Davis put up 26 points last week. You should pick him up if he's on waivers. 100%. He is very valuable long term, but against the New England Patriots, do not expect a 20-plus point game playing Stephon Gilmore, J.C. Jackson, and most importantly, Bill Belichick versus a rookie QB. You could have all the high praise in the world for Zach Wilson. But do you remember last year when Bill Belichick went up against Justin Herbert? Justin Herbert, who was on top of the world, and they lost 45 to 3 or potentially 45 to 0. I forgot which one. Do not expect a big day from Corey Davis whatsoever. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, I have the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts did not do very well last weekend, and I expect that to continue because they're in an eerily similar situation. Last weekend, they played the They played the Russell Wilson-led Seahawks, and the Seahawks played really well. This weekend, they're playing the Matthew Stafford-led Rams. You can see the correlation. Both have two really good quarterbacks with a great array of weapons, with a good rushing game, and Matthew Stafford looked really good last weekend. So, Colts, unfortunately, in my opinion, are going to bust. Once again, though, the boom or bust teams, purely speculation. Take it with a grain of salt. I do not know what I'm talking about. So, yeah, that's going to do it for me today. That's going to do it for the first ever Fantasy Jubilee. I hope you enjoyed, and if you stuck around this long, I have another little tidbit. Buy Cooper Kupp. Buy him. If you can trade for him, trade for him. He's a dude. So, yeah. Thank you for sticking around. First ever video with the camera, by the way. I didn't do that good. I noticed it was shaking a good bit. I'm looking around like this a good bit. But I am trying. Well, at least I'm putting out something. I have not put out much recently. I'm trying to fix that. So, yeah. Thank you for watching and have a great day. That's all I'm supposed to say. Jesus Christ.